Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. We're going to talk some football now because the CONCACAF Gold Cup preliminaries are in full swing as 14 nations compete for the final 7 berths in the group stage. The first leg encounters, which got underway on Friday, saw 6 nations registering victories. Guadeloupe, Guyana and Suriname rode their home field advantage to opening victories. Costa Rica, Honduras and Trinidad and Tobago earned away victories to help their chances at closing a result in the return leg, while St Vincent and the Grenadines and Jamaica played to a 1-1 draw. The second legs will be contested on Tuesday. Our football analyst Brent Sancho has been following the Gold Cup prelims closely, and he joins us now via Zoom. Brent, right off the bat, what a first leg result for the Guyanese up against the Central Americans, Guatemala, and getting a historic result.
Yeah, I'll add to the fact, Lance, that they played that game in Barbados and not in Guyana. Of course, their home field situation has not been resolved as yet. Massive result for the Guyanese. Of course, a hat-trick by Jones. A team that has had a good infusion of foreign-based players from the diaspora in the UK. A Guyanese squad that was disappointed and would have been disappointed with the results that they got against Suriname. Of course, it saw the end of the tenure of coach Jamal Sebastian. But to fast forward into that result in Barbados against a very plucky Guatemala team, a game that Guyana will certainly cherish as they take a second round or first round advantage going into Guatemala.
Yeah, I know that Jamal Shabazz, the Trinidadian, had been, the Trinbagonian I should say, had been the coach of the Guyana Jaguars for quite some time. They've had a change in their coaching setup. But it seems things are going well for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and a lot of the foundation that Coach Shabazz have laid for the Guyanese national team since he came in is still there and still very evident. I must admit, Lance, I was a bit surprised when he was asked to depart from his role. But that being said, when you look at, of course, the infusion that they have from their diaspora and, of course, some of their local talent, more so glaring as Amari Glasgow, the youngster that plays out of Chicago, born and raised in Guyana. It has been a very talented trajectory and a talented upward movement for Guyana. As I mentioned, they had a heavy defeat against rivals, Suriname, which eventually saw that departure. But then again, Lance, that's another team that has a litany of foreign-based players. That being said, the Guyanese have been good value for money, and they certainly, in that game against Guatemala, were deserved winners. The only thing I would add to it is that it probably could have been a bit more. They had some chances that you may say that they were a bit wasteful, but again, as we all know in CONCACAF football, one of the more difficult places to go is in Guatemala, and that's exactly what faces Guyana in a couple of hours.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go, because they do have the advantage, but it's just by a single goal. And I just get the feeling that Guatemala feels that it is within their grasp to overturn that first leg result in the difficult conditions of Guatemala. Well, I say difficult, I mean difficult for Guyana.
Yeah, and particularly with the way the game went in Barbados, of course, the Guatemalans were never really out of it. They still certainly competed for the most part. They do look a solid bunch. They do look a bit susceptible to set plays. And they themselves have been very decent at set plays with good deliveries in the box. When you go into countries like Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and those sorts, it's always a challenge. You have that 13-man factor. It is obviously a very, very challenging atmosphere. And most teams that travel, they find it very, very difficult to get a result out there. And even the big guns in CONCACAF struggle when they go to, of course, Guatemala to play. So you're right, this fixture is not over by any stretch of the imagination. I think if Guyana could be resolute in their result and of course, try to take the game in increments and not look at it as an entirety, they may have a chance of getting out it. But again, Lance, I must underscore the fact that this is a very, very difficult fixture for the Guyanese. And this certainly, this encounter is not over yet.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the TNT Cuba one for your last assessment, Brent, because I want to speak quickly about the SVG Jamaica battle. the Jamaicans with a last-minute penalty from Leon Bailey, salvaging a draw there. But we must say that Coach McLaren had said repeatedly in the days leading up to the game that he wasn't looking past this SVG team, and he thought that his team needed to be good because SVG had the quality to hurt them.
Well, if any of our viewers have been paying attention to CONCACAF football, they would know that St Vincent is one of the more difficult fixtures on the footballing calendar. A team that always needed a coach, and all due respect to the ones that were there before. And I think with the hiring of Coach Ezra Hendrickson, you see a team that is very well drilled and very well organized. And you have to give credit to the coaching staff, and they were good value for money. And of course, with the pace that they have in transition, and of course Anderson up front, they are a very tough customer, and they must add as well, Lance, playing on that Arnoldsfield cricket ground with that cricket field right in the middle of it. I can tell you from experience, it's not an easy task at all. And I think Jamaica found that out the hard way. Rightfully so, McLaren did say to many of the fans, Jamaica fans and the footballing public, that it was not going to be an easy encounter. And as we saw for the 90 minutes plus, that was the case.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things Coach Steve McLaren said earlier today in that press conference, because, of course, Jamaica getting ready for the second leg at Sabina Park, was that he felt the team needed to keep the tempo up. Richard King was asked a similar question, and his response was also very similar about keeping the team's tempo up. Brent, based on what you saw in the first leg, what are some of the areas you feel Jamaica would have to improve if they are to ensure that they walk away with a win?
Yeah, he's spot on. I really thought that Jamaica were very pedantic in their display. They looked very timid when they were playing balls into the middle of the park. They did have some challenges, in particular, in trying to get the ball into their danger players. And I thought the ball speed was very slow, and the tempo overall was extremely slow. We saw a better second half, and of course, the likes of Bailey and Gray started to get into things a bit more. And they have to have a bit better positional rotation because St Vincent did sit in a low block and did make things very difficult for them. They were extremely compact, and so that ingenuity and of course that freedom in their attacking third has to come out for Jamaica. They must take this game to St Vincent, and they have to be a lot better in the way that they move the ball around. And if they don't do that, I think they would continue with the struggles. But I do believe coming into this one that they will make the adjustments necessary to have a better fixture.
Yeah, and speaking about adjustments, even in that press conference, Coach was asked about, any major changes that will take place in the second leg. He spoke about Damian Lowe, one of the leaders within that Jamaica Reggae Boys dressing room, coming back into the setup. We know what Damian Lowe can do. We know the leadership qualities that he, of course, emits on the field. So talk to me about what an asset it is to have Damian Lowe back into the setup.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we saw in St Vincent. The team lacked a genuine leader, a voice on that pitch that could, of course, make sure and keep people accountable. And I think that's what Jamaica lacked, a leader on the pitch. Of course, we do know that Blake and Leon Bailey are seasoned customers, but Lowe is one of those characters on a team that is able to get under people's skin and make sure that they bring their A game. And I think that is what is necessary. And of course, when you look at his playing attributes with the likes of Anderson from St Vincent, who I think is easily one of the better strikers in CONCACAF, the young man from St Vincent, I think Lowe is better suited to deal with him, especially in transition and in 1v1 situations. Of course, the goal came from that situation. So I think overall what he brings, and I would add probably a change in the midfield or maybe the composition of the midfield, moving away from a double pivot, maybe Latavadea comes in and starts in that position, may give them that bonus that Jamaica needs to play. I must say though, Mariah, that St Vincent is a team that does do extremely well at home and play at Arnoldsfield. But when they do travel, they've always been known to have their difficulties. And I think coming to Sabina Park and not necessarily the office, in Kingston, at the National Stadium, I still feel that they may have their troubles, because I do feel there will be some sort of a lift in performance from the Jamaican players.
Yeah, and Trinidad and Tobago getting the better of Cuba. Of course, current head coach Dwight York expressing how really proud it was for him, to pick up this win and at least getting the win in Cuba. Brent, how did you feel as a former Soca warrior watching this current Cup of Players, bring the first leg home at least? Because as Dwight said, there's still a full 90 minutes and anything can happen in that second leg. But speak to me as a player now, Brent, a former player.
No, look, I thought it was an excellent result. I do feel within the game that there were certain moments that we could improve in. I do feel, Mariah, that the goal that we gave away was very sloppy, and it should have been defended a lot better. But I think there's a lot more positives than negatives when you look at the fixture, when you look at young Spice out on the left-hand side, again, his first international debut at the senior level, of course, creating one of the opportunities, a strike up front in Isaiah Lee, who's not known for his goal scoring prowess, getting on the score sheet, and Jovian Jones playing in that number 10 role and looking very confident and assured and wearing the captain armband. And you add all of that to the fact that you have the likes of Molino and Jamal Jack coming into the fold for the home fixtures. Things are looking up for Trinidad and Tobago. As I said, it was not necessarily a complete performance from the men from Trinidad and Tobago, but in general terms, there's a lot to be satisfied about and a lot to be happy about if you're Coach Dwight York, and of course if you're myself being a former player.
Yeah, and at halftime the result was locked 1-1. Then Stefan Yeats comes into the setup in the 53rd minute, Brent, and seals the deal in the first leg for the Soca Warriors. Talk a bit about Stefan and his quality as a player. I know one thing for sure is you watch these players very, very closely. How impressed have you been with this player?
Very impressed. I think he's taken some time to, of course, get his feet on the ground playing for Trinidad and Tobago, a young man that went through the Canadian ranks and has finally found himself in the red, white and black, not necessarily the red and white of Canada, but he does bring something that I do feel that Trinidad doesn't have enough of, and that's genuine quality in the middle of the park, genuine quality to unlock defenses, and genuine quality even from a thinking perspective. He does put in a fair bit of work and operate in the right way. And he has the right, I think he has the right attitude and the right acumen. So he has been a positive, and we've seen him grow. When you look at the performances against Cuba, he's one of them that is up there as it relates to having a very good performance, certainly in my top three in a game against Cuba. And you hope that he continues in the game tomorrow in Atobola, because he will be needed. And it'll be interesting to see how Coach York lines up his team, particularly with Kevin Molino now cleared to play and will be able to play fixture tomorrow, if there will be adjustment, or as they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's see what he does.
Yeah.
All right, Brent, we're going to leave it there. Great talking to you as usual. And we're 24 hours away from the remaining matches, and we'll see what happens then. Thanks, Brent.
Yeah, certainly, guys. Have a great one.
Yeah, so the 7 qualifiers for the Gold Cup group stage will be confirmed tomorrow. And the teams that had already qualified: Canada, Curacao, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Haiti, Mexico, Panama, the USA, and the guest team, Saudi Arabia. And the base of that graphic that you're looking at are those spots that are to be filled by tomorrow's aggregate winners in the Gold Cup qualifiers. We go to break. We still have a lot more football to talk about on the show, and we get to that after the break.